Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're talking about JPMO and how much 100 shares of this fund will pay you in monthly dividends. So if you're not familiar with what this fund is, it is YieldMax's high income strategy ETF focusing on JPMorgan. So year to date, it's been getting smacked a little bit, but if we look up the total real returns for this fund, if we go to totalrealreturns.com, plug in JPM as well as JPMO, we'll see that it's actually, including the dividend reinvested, 14.41%. Obviously, investing in JPMorgan year to date would have been a great investment, up 45% year to date. But hindsight is always 2020. And today we're going to be talking about JPMO and the dividend play that we are going to be able to see here. So let's look it up in dividend history. Okay, so according to their most recent distribution, we can see is roughly 35 cents. Let's zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so it's currently projecting a 22% yield. I'll have to check the IV here in a second. I think that's what YieldMax typically likes to target. They look at the overall IV for the investment that they're selling options on, and that's kind of what they're targeting. So I'll double check that in a second. According to this website, I think they just use the most recent distribution and kind of calculate it that way. But according to their website, 22% yield, paying an annual dividend of $4.20. So if we kind of calculate that out here, we're looking at $4.20 times 100 shares is going to pay us roughly $420. Yeah. Okay. So then $420 per year divided by 12, roughly $35 a month. So I don't know if you guys can. Yeah, you can't see that on my screen. I have another screen here, but pretty much, they're paying 35 cents a month. So you multiply that by 100. So you're going to get roughly $35 a month from this fund. 35, 37, 52. Looks like that was a big month. Looks like some of this column is off the declaration date. It looks like it's the same for all of that. But needless to say, I think they are group. Let me think about that. That's probably group. So their next payment or their previous payment was on November 8th. If I can pull that up here. Yeah, so I think it's group A. I'll have to double check that as well. But yeah, so $35 by investing $1,900. Buying 100 shares at the current share price today. It looks like it ran up 20 cents. But 1906 is what it's going to cost to purchase 100 shares there. We go back here. Look at JPMO. Let's go to YieldMax's website. JPMO, 23.94 distribution rate. That's kind of what they're targeting. And this is the history of some of their dividends we just recently saw. 35 cents was their most recent one in November. But yeah, so one last thing I want to kind of take a look at. JPM's IV, just to kind of see how that compares. So currently, it looks like their IV is 19.8, down 1.0. Their 20-day historical IV is 22.5. 52-week high is 31, 26. So yeah, okay. So it's around the 20 to 30 IV range, and that's that matches up with what YieldMax is trying to pretty much get out of this fund. So pretty much to summarize, let's see here. So we said 1906, and we are going to get $420 in dividends from this fund. So let's back this out. 420 divided by 1920. What is it? No, this is 1906. Is that what it was? Yeah, 1906. My bad. 420 divided by 1906. You're looking at a 22% yield. It's up 15% year to date, including it looks like the negative 5% price depreciation plus the yield it's created so far. So just keep that in mind. They are. I don't know if they've implemented it yet for JPMO, but they are implementing more of a spread strategy for a lot of their funds, just to kind of prevent some of that NAV erosion. We'll see how it goes, though. But comparing that to JP Morgan dividend, let's kind of look at this, right? So obviously JP Morgan is more of a growth play, right? We saw that when it's up 44 year to date. So it's more of a dividend growth play. They've increased their dividend pretty much every year. But they have a yield of 2.01%, so much lower, compared to the 22%. So just kind of keep that in mind here. So it's $1.25 per quarterly payment. It's another thing too. They only pay quarterly. So what was the price of JP Morgan? Okay, so JP Morgan is around $248. So say we had that $1,900, so 1906 divided by 248. We're getting roughly 7.7 shares. 7.7 shares times $1.25. So that's what you're going to receive in quarterly income. Multiply that by 4. You're looking at $38.50 on what's 1906. Yeah, so you're making almost $40 in dividends compared to 420. So it's almost 10x, right? So what is it? 420 divided by 38.5. Yeah, almost 11x investing into JPMO versus JP Morgan. So definitely not a financial advisor here, but what I like to try to implement is a combination of the two, of directly purchasing the underlying myself as well as a high income fund. I personally like to sell options on stocks. So that is my goal, to build equity, build, shares in the actual underlying, sell premium, maybe reinvest some of that premium, maybe use some of that premium to purchase the YieldMax funds. But overall, I'm focusing on growth right now, dividend growth especially. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it for today's video. Please like, subscribe down below. Let me know if you're interested in this fund or if you just like investing into the actual underlying asset yourself and selling the options. Obviously you're paying a pretty high expense ratio with a fund such as JPMO. Was it like almost a percent? So, you just have to kind of understand that. Looks like that's okay. So it's 1.01%. So yeah, so you have to just kind of assess that. Does it make sense to pay that high of an expense ratio? Do you just want to sell the options yourself? But yeah, guys, that's some things you have to assess. But obviously, disclaimer: do your own research. Make sure it makes sense for you to invest in these types of derivative, high income based funds. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it for today's video. Please like, subscribe down below.